So first of all, I would like to emphasize that this video does require 30 likes and 100 to 150 views for us to do part 2. So get your friends in here, get your extra people in here, make sure everybody comes in and watches the video, because if we don't have that, I have to just stop the series and move on to something else. So make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you want to see more of this. More importantly, is that we will be streaming tomorrow night, 9 p.m., first episode, Academy of Redhurst. Links are in the description for both Redhurst and Fallout Equestria, so you can go on Twitch right now and set a reminder, and Twitch will send you reminders to tell you, hey, there's this event that you wanted to go to. So there you go. In the meantime, let's get the video started right and proper. Now, you're going to notice I'm not physically present for this series. That's kind of important. I'm going to be recording this and showing you guys exact examples of what I mean. The first thing that this series does, the very first thing, is it tells you exactly what it is in less than a minute. I want you to observe how it's told, what's said about it, and how they bring you in. So we're going to turn on the subtitles real quick, and here we go.
Welcome, one and all, to Dimension 20. Our cast of players will assume the role of heroic adventurers embarking on a dangerous quest. Our story takes place in the world of Spire. Spire mostly conforms to your expectations for a world of swords and sorcery, with one notable exception, and that's Elmville. Elmville is a little town in a nation called Solace. Solace may be home to elves, orcs, dwarves, and gnomes, but it resembles more of a 1950s through 1980s America. There are several schools in Elmville, but our story begins at the Eggfort Adventuring Academy, the world's premier training ground for would-be heroes. Our story begins with 6 freshmen on their first day of school, and the first bell's just about to ring. Without any further ado, Dimension 20 proudly presents Fantasy High!
Okay, so that took 52 seconds. That's it. You as a game master and you as a character should be able to describe your character in 52 seconds. You shouldn't have all of this extra fluff and everything. Notice he only hit the important enough parts to be worthy to be mentioned. That's important. When you go through a character description, you should be able to describe your character very quickly. When you go through describing your world as the game master, you should be able to describe it incredibly quickly. 52 seconds. That's what you're shooting for. Notice how excited he was, how engaged he was. He wasn't talking in a very low-key voice and sitting here and just be like, my world's about with and it has a thing with... No. He was super excited. That's the type of energy you need to have when you're describing your world to players. You don't necessarily have to do it how he did it, but you need to convey excitement and a sense of anticipation with them listening to you describe your world. This applies to writing books, this applies to writing fan fiction, this applies to talking to your friends about your games, this applies to recruiting, this applies to everything you do. I can't emphasize that enough. I have to clap my freaking hands to get the point across. Now, we're going to take a look at one of the character descriptions that work really well and really good, and then we're going to take a look at a character description that might need some work.
As the clouds part, a flock of gulls flies over the Marigold River, heading down into an area of wealth and expansive taste. It's downtown Elmville, and we see that amongst the manors, there is a colossal, gilded man-o-war, a pirate ship, great and mighty, that has been dry-docked and dragged out of the river all the way up onto land and turned into a mansion.
Do you see what he does there? Do you see how he describes this world? how he describes this pirate ship. And did you notice he changed his voice? This is important for dungeon masters. This is important for characters. Your character and the NPCs are not you. Straight up. Full stop. That means that they have to talk in different voices a lot of the time. You as a dungeon master need to write down what voice you used. Let's be entirely honest. But it's important to emphasize, look at how excited he was to describe this house. So, you need to be that kind of excited, and you need to make sure that you're not overly describing things. He leaves a lot of it vague, a lot of it to our imagination. It's a pirate ship. He doesn't say what's on the mast. He doesn't say what the name is on the ship. He says it's a dry-docked pirate ship. Our imaginations now run wild. So, now we're going to move on to the next little piece of this.
Oh, of course. Hello. I'm Fabian Aramis, Seacaster. You know, I'm a half-elf. I'm, of course, the son of the famous William Seacaster, the great adventurer who sailed the Celestine Sea, freeing slaves and raising up nations. I'm a fencer by trade. I also know how to glass blow, and I'm quite good at calligraphy. And I am absolutely thrilled to be here at the Eggford Adventuring Academy. Very excited to kind of start on my adventure of becoming an adventurer, much like my father, that I may too one day take up the mantle of the Seacaster name and show my heroism across Spire.
You're out on a lovely day.
6'1", white hair, a relative, like a thinner, like a very, how would you say it?
Lean. Athletic.
There you go, lean muscle. That's what I was looking for. Very like lean muscle, very dexterous, but also incredibly strong.
I'm thinking soccer
It's like
player
a
or swimmer?
swimmer's body.
Yeah, a real Michael Phelps type.
Okay, shoulders, hello.
For those of you at home. But yeah.
Michael Phelps with a sword.
And white hair.
Such a
So, what just happened there? What has occurred is what is referred to as describing your character in a way that is allowing more the players to figure out what you look like. And it's a group effort. Now, it's also important to note something else here. I'm going to rewind just a little bit.
Halfling maid Cathilda. Oh. And you're out on the...
When he says, what does your character look like, there's something very, very important to all characters that occurs here. A picture. Seriously. I emphasize this to all of my players. It is $5 for some artists to get a picture. I'll put one up right now. Scapola Mina, her original picture was $4. This shows dramatic character investment, both to you as a player and to your GM. I have invested in this character. I am dead serious about playing this character. Why? I went and commissioned artwork. It's $4 or $5 to commission Sketch to do a piece of art. It's as much as $70 to commission Ravage. So anyone with a price budget who can afford to play a tabletop game, to get the books, to be able to do this, should be able to get a character. Now, if you can't afford that, someone at the table can. And you guys as a gaming group, to help welcome people in or to help someone out, should, pool your resources. Get a piece of artwork done, custom artwork for your character. If you're physically playing at the table, go get a miniature. It's $2 to $10 to get a miniature. And then you can pay someone a few dollars at the game store probably. Or a lot of game store people will, particularly if you just don't know how or can't afford it, will either teach you how or will do it for you. Someone in your gaming group will gladly paint you a mini. I've had gaming groups paint me minis before. It's not out of your reach. It really isn't. And you need to learn that. More importantly, look how he described his character. I'm going to replay this for you.
Like a thinner, like a very how would you say it?
Lean, athletic.
Lean muscle. That's what I was looking for. Very like lean muscle, very dexterous, but also incredibly strong.
I'm thinking soccer
It's like
player
a
or swimmer?
swimmer's body.
Yeah, but a real Michael Phelps type.
Now, what just happened here is what is called group collaborative description. The player of Fabian is unable to articulate how his character looks properly by himself. But to help with that, everyone else is pitching in. The group is taking what was initially a flawed concept because he couldn't describe it himself and helping him create the description, both physically and socially and mentally, of this character. You notice he's also flexing in and out of his character's voice. When he's unsure of something, he goes to his natural, normal voice. When he's certain of it as a character, he flexes to a character voice. This is just as important for players as GMs. When you talk in your regular voice, you're out of character. When you talk in a character voice, everyone knows you're in character. I will give you an example. We sit at the table, and I talk and describe Sunrise's actions in my normal voice. The moment that Sunrise is talking, I switch my voice a little bit and talk like Sunny and talk in a higher pitch, and I forget how to use contractions, and I sit there and go through with this proper equestrian speech. Or another example, when I was giving Zanti's backstory for Tuesday night, I switched my voice and went, I am Zonti, the Draenei from Azeroth. However, my mother is not from there. My mother is a Drow from I don't know where. And therefore, I have been sent to this academy because it felt like the safest option with 2 or 3 potentially very bad enemies looking for me, and it seemed like a good place to go to school instead of staying where it would be easier to find me. You notice how when I'm talking as the character or I'm describing the character, my voice changes. Yes, my voice can be irritating or it can be cliche. That's fine. So long as you talk in a way that emphasizes the difference between your out of character and your in character. It works beautifully. Now we're going to skip some of the introductions and skip to what I consider, out of the group of 6 people at this table, the perfect character introduction.
Just really feel it.
Okay.
I have to pause this here. Notice how he's using his facial expressions. He's in character. One of the really cool things about Gorgug throughout this entire series is this person's obviously played a tabletop game before. Most of them haven't, but this one has. He is 100% in character every time he speaks, every time he talks, the way he does things, the way he acts, his level of intelligence, all of it. And he rolls with it beautifully. He creates some of the most hilarious and awkward moments, but also towards the middle and at the end, he creates some of the moments that truly make you stop and go, my poor heart can't take anymore. And he does it very, very well. Now, we're going to play his intro, and I'm going to let you guys listen to his full intro and understand exactly what I'm talking about.
So it's pretty early. It's a misty gray kind of morning.
over in Little Branch. Little Branch is the area of town where like the small folk live. There's a lot of miniature houses over there. And we see over in a little corner of a neighborhood, sort of far away, there's a tree. And it's a tree with a little door in it, and there's little windows and little pulleys and kites and all kinds of things of gnomish make, clever little contraptions and wonderful things. And there, in the middle of the tree, standing up from a bed that fills up the entire tree and almost at sort of like a slant even, the face sort of pressed up against the windowsill, is Gorgug Thistlespring. Gorgug, can you tell us sort of what you look like and what you're doing right now?
Yeah. I'm Gorgug. I'm 14. I'm 6 feet, 4 inches tall. I'm a lot bigger than this house that I'm in.
You see what's happening. He could articulate this like you and I can very easily, but instead he's articulating it as his character. It's very, very important for players to learn to do this. In Roll20, you may not necessarily have the facial expressions and everything of that nature. You may have to describe them. And because when you're using online Roll20, you don't always have the convenience of everyone being willing to cut on their cameras. I'm more than happy to cut on my camera for Roll20, but I don't know that my gaming groups are. Now, this particular group, they're all in person. And so you notice at the table, his facial expression matches the facial expression of his character. And more importantly, again, artwork is ready of the character. Sitting in this environment for this introduction, and you not only can see it, but you can hear it, and you can hear it as the character would describe it. So I'm going to let this description finish so you guys can see this.
I kind of don't have a lot of friends. I'm not good really talking to people. I like keeping to myself and just sort of like drawing or something or listening to music. I'm adopted, by the way. My parents are little gnomes, and I'm a lot bigger than them. Last night I broke my bed in my sleep. Again. I just like to keep to myself.
Well...
So, it's very important here to emphasize this as well. You can play an introverted character. That's fine. But, as we're going to see through this series, Gorgug finds ways to play an introverted character, and at the same time, he is fully prepared to execute upon that character. That means that he still stays as an introvert. He still talks in short sentences. He still avoids a lot of contact with the players. But he does that as an in-character thing. As an out-of-character thing, he's very active at the table. He's very open. He's very direct. He talks actually quite a lot. So you can play an introverted character, but I have to emphasize something. You need to make sure that you're playing an introverted character that is going to integrate into the party, work well with the party, and you still need to be actively talking at the table. Like, you need to be actively talking a lot. Every single character at the table should at least, in a 1-hour session of D&D per hour, you need to have talked for 5 minutes to contribute, for people to actively notice your contributions. That doesn't mean you have to talk 5 minutes of every hour. It does mean, however, when there is a roleplay session going on and it doesn't require dice, you need to actively be chatting with the other players, or at least, interjecting occasionally, describing your action. That doesn't mean do the edgelord thing and sit there and be like, I'm brooding, and then 5 minutes later, I'm brooding. No. If you want to be that type of character, you're playing the wrong game, because that's not how people actually act. I'll show you how to do an example of I'm brooding. My character is sitting over there drawing. You're not sure what they're drawing. They don't look sure what they're drawing. From a distance, it looks like they're brooding. But the fact of the matter is, they're just incredibly confused at the situation and don't know how to approach it. And if you get close to them, they look up and go, huh? Exactly what is actually happening when characters are brooding. That's actually what's happening, is someone is sitting there mentally doing gymnastics, and you need to talk about your mental gymnastics. You need to talk about your mental gymnastics instead of saying I'm over there brooding. All right, we're going to move on to the next part.
In his gray hoodie, he's got his headphones on, listening to some music. And
Evanescence, no doubt.
you see that it's pretty early, and you see that coming in from the workshop, your adoptive mom and dad, Digby and Wilma Thistle Spring, are tinkerers, and you see they come in. Your dad's kind of got this, like mutton chops, and he's bald. He's got these sort of goggles on. And your mom's got like a little sort of like workshop like bandana around her head, and they both have like aprons on and have like little curly pointed shoes. You see your dad and mom both walk in, and your mom goes, "Well, hey there, sweetie, you're already up."
Yeah, I got up pretty early. I broke my bed again.
"Oh, sweetheart, well, that's that's no problem. Oh, on the first day of school." You see that your dad immediately goes over and starts doing some like gnomish spell, takes out like a hammer and starts mending it with magic. And you see he says, "Hey, you know what? Sometimes a thing gets broken, and when you rebuild it, it's stronger for it, you know? A lot of things are like that. You put a sword in a steel forge, you gotta beat the hell out of that thing to get it nice and hard and sharp, you know? Breaking things isn't bad."
I mean, you keep saying that, but I keep breaking things.
And it's always good. It's always good that you're right, you know.
The parents arrive, and you begin to learn more and more about this character. What the GM has done is the GM understands this is an introverted character. And what makes a part of this character introduction so great is the parents. The GM, understanding this is an introverted character, brings in the parents, but brings them in a way that is basically, Gorgug, these are the two that you talk to because these are the two that you trust and you relate to. Another character that's going to be introduced later is Fig, and Fig doesn't like her parents. And the GM immediately recognizes that Fig doesn't like her parents because her parents are getting a divorce and her parents are angry, and it turns out that she's not entirely related to her dad. So, spoiler alert, yeah, I'm going to ruin this entire series for you. Get ready. The important part here is that the GM is willing to play this out with the other character to show everyone at the table who this character is, because he's realized that the player of Gorgug is going to stay as in character as possible through everything. And by doing so, the GM needs to bring out who this character is to the rest of the table so they know who he is and they get an attachment. And notice something else that's important. The players all giggled and laughed and are having a good time, but they're listening and paying attention. No one is on their phone. If you're on Roll20, you don't have another game open. You're not doing stuff on Facebook and Twitter. It's closed down. You notice I don't do that on stream, even when it's not my turn? Yeah, I'll get up sometimes when it's not my turn and my character is completely uninvolved in a scene. But that's because I'm trying to write a book and my character isn't supposed to know about that. When, as often as possible, I'm at the table, I'm listening, and I'm being a peanut gallery. That needs to be you. That seriously needs to be you. As a player and as a character, that needs to be you. If it's not your turn, you're listening to every word. You're paying attention. You're physically present in there. And if it is your turn, you're making it actively interesting for everyone else. It doesn't mean you have to start that way. Don't be intimidated here. It does not mean you have to start that way. It means you have to build to that point. And after every session, you need to be willing to sit down and take feedback from the other characters And everyone, you need to get willing to give feedback. Tell them particular parts you enjoyed that they did. And then tell them particular parts that maybe they should have been involved in, or maybe they should, be more up there with. Alright, we're going to move on to the next part.
A weird dream where I got really mad, and then I woke up and my bed was broken.
Okay.
Do you guys have dreams where you're mad all the time?
You see that Digby and Wilma look at each other and go, well, sure.
Really?
Sure.
I was just thinking about I've never seen you mad.
Well, you didn't see me when your old pa here dropped a screwdriver on my dang thumb. I was fit to, I said, hey, watch it, Buster. He really got
You were
it.
so mad and you said, hey, watch it, Buster.
Ugh, yeah, I really...
I feel like my insides are boiling.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
When I'm mad, I'm not mad right now.
Okay, hey, you know what? Everybody gets mad sometimes, and one thing you can think about when you're going to school is hey, I'm things aren't going my way. I'm getting pretty PO'd. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sing a song. You see, your mom grabs like a little harp, and your dad grabs a little ukulele, and they start sort of harmonizing, and they go like, when you feel a little mad, it's probably because you really feel sad. Just remember your mom and dad, and then you'll start to feel real glad. That's right. Okay. That's right, bud. So just...
I put you through that on purpose. That GM, he sings like 4 or 5 songs. Like, they're really short, 2 or 3 verses. He's flat as fuck. I'm not as flat as he is. I've gotten actually better, but I'm working on it. He's flat as fuck. This is the part I need to emphasize to all of you. As both game master and player, if you have characters that are supposed to sing, you may want to do some research on musical theory. You may want to do some research on how to rhyme a song. You may want to, practice a little bit. Don't worry about it, though, if you're absolutely flat and terrible. This is improv acting. Do what you can with what you got. There are characters all the time that are going to show up that are supposed to sing. Work with it. Trust me. I'm currently playing a bard on Monday nights. And I have to talk in a sing-songy voice because the bard rhymes left, right, and sideways. And because the bard rhymes, I have to say things in a very, very enthusiastic voice. So I will give you an example here. So I learned this trick in need. A drunken master and a wizard had an argument indeed. The two of them stank and cranked on and on about how much they could have dranked. So I decided to end the squabble by liquoring them up back to their hovel. With that, alcoholics unite! And that is a spell for my character. Those are the words she has to say to cast a spell to summon alcohol. It is important to note I had to come up with that on the fly in the middle of a game session, and it's just a poem type spell. Do you understand how silly I sound saying that, or how awkward it is? But guess what? That's okay. It really is okay. You as a player character, you as a GM, don't be afraid to just let it hang out and let yourself sound stupid. Because in real life, not everyone sounds amazing. And in the game world, other players can imagine what you actually sound like in order to figure out how you sound. Now notice I also did that in a character voice. I'm very forthcoming and straight talking, The character has this kind of projection to it that throws her words across the room. I did that entire thing in that voice. Not my natural voice, but in that character voice. It's not straining to me, and it's not overly hard. You need to make sure that your character voice doesn't strain your voice, but it's different from your natural voice. Okay, now we're going to move on to what I think is the worst character introduction out of all of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
We go now to Ballaster, which is kind of like, a little more rundown, more seedy kind of place, kind of bad part of town. And we see Strong Tower luxury apartments with the luxury kind of Arcano crystal flickering, so it just goes to Strong Tower apartments. We see that there is a small bedroom and basically like a kind of retrofitted, it's like a one-bedroom apartment with like a kind of cordoned off, like bed in the living room with like a fake drywall around it. Very small apartment. And we see that there's like sun's just coming up. There's like, some smoke coming from like, some burning thing on the oven. And there's a little bit of like coffee in a mug. A very sparse, Spartan kind of place. And we see Riz Gukgak. Brian, go ahead and describe Riz for me if you'd be so good.
Yeah, so I'm Riz Gukgak. My nickname in middle school was Briefcase Kid. I'm a goblin, and I don't have a lot of friends, even though I'm pretty social, which is weird. My only real friend was this halfling named Penny Luckstone, who technically my babysitter. I had a babysitter until I was 13, but she recently went missing. And my mom is a detective, and I'm a licensed private investigator, so I am gonna find Penny myself.
So it's early in the morning. I assume you've been up all night working your case.
I've got my board that just has the missing girls all just pointed at the school.
You.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
We go now to Ballaster, which is kind of like, a little more rundown, more seedy kind of place, kind of bad part of town. And we see Strong Tower luxury apartments with the luxury kind of Arcano crystal flickering, so it just goes to Strong Tower apartments. We see that there is a small bedroom and basically like a kind of retrofitted, it's like a one-bedroom apartment with like a kind of cordoned off, like bed in the living room with like a fake drywall around it. Very small apartment. And we see that there's like sun's just coming up. There's like, some smoke coming from like, some burning thing on the oven. And there's a little bit of like coffee in a mug. A very sparse, Spartan kind of place. And we see Riz Gukgak. Brian, go ahead and describe Riz for me if you'd be so good.
Yeah, so I'm Riz Gukgak. My nickname in middle school was Briefcase Kid. I'm a goblin, and I don't have a lot of friends, even though I'm pretty social, which is weird. My only real friend was this halfling named Penny Luckstone, who technically my babysitter. I had a babysitter until I was 13, but she recently went missing. And my mom is a detective, and I'm a licensed private investigator, so I am gonna find Penny myself.
So it's early in the morning. I assume you've been up all night working your case.
I've got my board that just has the missing girls all just pointed at the school.
All right. So the GM did a wonderful job describing this character's environment, preparing it, emphasizing it, bringing us all in. What did he do wrong? And I'm going to throw some pretty heavy criticism here. I'm going to throw some very heavy criticism here. He, first off, had no character voice whatsoever. None. Not one bit. He does this throughout the entire series. He has no character voice. He talks in the same voice, whether he's in character or out of character. It doesn't matter. There's other things that are happening here. One, his description of him was, "I'm a goblin." No physical description. No way to like tell him apart from the pack. I'm a goblin. If you say I'm a goblin, there's 30 different ways we can imagine you being a goblin. Now, I appreciate the fact he has artwork. This helps the rest of the players visualize who he is and where he's standing and what he looks like. But you can't just describe yourself as, "I'm a goblin." Let me explain to you how I would describe this character. I'm short of stature like the rest of my goblin race. I have all monochromatic coloring about me. Everything is a different shade of green. My eyes are green. My eyes are like this really glossy, clearly fake emerald green. My hair is this really grassy green. The rest of my body is this really sickly, I'm going to throw up green. And I have these little like mud green freckles across my face. I have one buck tooth that kind of hangs out the front of my lip all the time. I have these sharp pointed ears with clear like there's this little cut on each ear. They're almost uniform, and it's kind of that clear indication of I'm a goblin. I have my ears cut because, you know, goblins do ear cutting for some reason. I have this really like pointed, big, oversized nose, and it's not like the bridge of my nose is very big. It goes all the way down, and then you get to like the stub where the nostrils are, and it just flares out like I'm gonna like jab you with my nose. And my hands are huge compared to like the rest of my body. Like my arms are these little spindly things, and then my hands are like the size of normal human hands. I'm only like 3'4", and I'm wearing this burgundy business attire. It's like the 3-piece suit without the jacket. So I just have the vest and the tie and the nice pants, and the vest doesn't quite fit me very well anymore because there's like a little gap between the vest, right at where my belt buckle is, that like shows the white shirt and this little triangle. And I have in my actual shirt, like underneath, is obviously too big because I got the sleeves rolled halfway up just to get them to where they're manageable, and they're wrinkled. Everything is wrinkled. Like all of my stuff is wrinkled, and then I've got a bugle hat on my head, like the newspaper boy. Or like a soccer boy, or like a town crier. You know, that little bugle hat that you wear that says "I'm from the newspaper." Well, I've got that. That's how I would have described him. His entire description of his character is, "I'm a goblin who's a private investigator." And the cough was a nice touch, but this is a terrible character description. Without this piece of artwork, you don't know what he looks like, what he wears, or how he really acts. All you know is it's a goblin private investigator. And that unleashes this myriad of possible imaginative things. More importantly, he doesn't have a character voice. You notice that when he was talking at the table out of character, and now he's talking in character, his same exact voice. Same exact way of talking. And he does this all the time. He doesn't show the party what his character actually would sound like. And that's a problem. That you, as a player, have to fix. Now, you can change your voice, you can change your speech pattern. Either of these things are fine. Doing both is excellent. He does neither. And by far, he is one of the better characters as far as his in-character actions, as far as what he does as a player character at the table and how he rolls with the dice rolls and how he acts and everything. But he's also out of character. He's that player that we can all be sometimes. That the dice rolls aren't exactly what you wanted. And so you bitch and moan and complain. Another person, we've tried to work with him on it. We talk about it on live stream, and so I hope he doesn't mind. But Von Holtz does the same thing. When the dice rolls aren't exactly in his favor, and it does it a few times, he gets very pessimistic out of character. And it grinds on everyone's nerves. You need to learn how your character deals with the fact that their life isn't exactly rose and cheery. Now, you can deal with that in character. If you do that in character, that's wonderful. But to do it out of character, it grinds on people's nerves. And it's something that Holtz has tried working on, but he always goes back to that falling into the my dice rolls aren't very nice to me right now. I'm going to roll all ones, and it's going to be terrible. I'm going to crit fail constantly. Can't. If you do that, it brings everyone else down. And you need to figure out a way to make it into something positive, or make it a joke, or find some other way to emphasize your dissatisfaction with it, but to make it entertaining. There are just characters who just have bad dice rolls. It happens to all of us. And later in the series, I'm going to show and emphasize this with how he acts at the table when dice rolls just go tits up. But more importantly, he doesn't have a character voice. And he didn't describe his character as anything but a goblin who's a private investigator. It doesn't tell us anything. It tells us a little bit. But that's the bare minimum you need to tell us if you're describing an NPC as a GM. Not if you're describing a star of the show as a player character.
Creepy to have a little boy's room.
I just have a board of missing girls.
He's trying to find them.
Whatever, creep.
Yeah, whatever.
You're not here. You're not here. None of you are here.
Yeah. You know you take breaks and kiss a...
Notice what just happened there. Whereas with Fabian, when people chimed in and ragged on him about stuff, he laughed and he rolled with it and he said, exactly right, or no, not quite. Can I get with a more? And then they ended up with Michael Phelps. When they did it to him, he pushed all of it away, knocked it all down, and refused to accept any of it. And then he said, you're not here, you're not here, you're not here, none of you are here. That doesn't work as a table dynamic. You've now created a shell, an invisible social shell, around yourself from the other players. And you're going to see, as we go on throughout this series, how that social shell impacts how everyone interacts with Riz. How much more the other players don't talk to him directly or end up seeming a little uncomfortable because of his, not just because of his in-character to in-character things, but because of this social shell he's established around himself in the very first session. This takes this from an okay, I can deal with it character introduction to this is a terrible character introduction. You have barely described your character. You're leaving it entirely up to us, to our imagination. I'm glad you brought artwork. That helps out a little bit. And then you just threw up a barrier between yourself and everyone else at the table. Don't throw up out of character barriers. Let other players describe things about your character. And if they're not right, say, that's not quite right. Can we... I don't know, can we go with this instead, or can we go this direction with it? Create that collaborative pool like they did with Fabian. Don't do what he just did.
Penny.
So you're
Riz is there not kissing a pillow. Just being a private investigator.
you see that it's early in the morning. You're kind of looking at the board.
All right, I have to bring up this last point. That was the most offensive thing I've seen at a table in a long time. Even Miske with Alguassel was not that defensive about his character and what his character did. Actually, Miske was that bad at times. I stand corrected. We had to actually explain to him how to roll with stuff on live stream. But that was terrible. You've shut down the conversation about your character. Now, granted, you can say he's not kissing. It's not what he said, but the way he said it. His body language, his vocal cords, all of it shuts off the conversation. Don't do that. Don't be that person. You can't be that person. And if someone is that person after the game session, talk to them about it. But don't be that guy or that girl that just draws the hard line, shuts down the conversation, and tries to push it on. There's a difference between telling people, can we move on, and telling people, we're moving on and I'm not letting you do this anymore. There's a big difference. And there's a big difference between rolling with the jokes about your character and instead slapping everyone anytime they make a joke about you. We're here to have fun. We're here to have a good time, and part of that good time is the in and out of character jokes that occur at the table. You cannot pull a Riz Gutgak. You cannot pull a Miskay and slam down those jokes hardcore. Because one, it makes people want to make them more, and two, it destroys the table dynamic and creates that social shell that isolates you from the rest of the people out of character. And that becomes problematic for you for the rest of the session.
It's a really nice board. You got like the yarn and
Alright, this concludes episode 1, just getting to the character introductions. This is how you should be addressing your character introductions. This is how you should be addressing your social dynamics at the table. And I've shown you a basic character introduction, the best character introduction at the table, and the worst.
Welcome to the army of Fiaura.
And apparently, now is the time for that to happen. Welcome to the army of Fiaura, Roger Lever, who... I can't even pronounce your name. There's too many vowels. Next time I'm going to show you guys some in-character actions, how they set up from one point to the next, and how they relate to each other, and how the GM establishes a rapport with these characters and with the people at the table by giving them something to go for, and then making them chase it. I'm also going to show you how he sets up consequence and action. So in the meantime, this has been Fiaura. I would like to thank these patrons. These people are awesome and amazing, and thank you very much for everything, guys. And if you would like to support the channel, there's a Patreon link in the description below. It's why we have an ad-free channel, is because of that Patreon. And if you'd like to see more of this series, I need to see... I'm going to go with 30. Let's go with 30. Low number. 30 likes. See if you guys can get 30 again. So long as you guys get 30 and I see at least 100, 150 reviews, 150 views, we'll do it again. We'll do we'll keep doing part 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 so long as I see it's not a lot. Just hit the like button. Make sure you get your friends involved. Make sure this gets 150 views. And I'll keep the series going so long as we do that all the way to the end. But next time we're going to analyze some of the more profound and some of the more interesting character aspects as the GM provides action, consequence, motivation, goal, all of that to these characters, both during their character introductions, I skipped over that part intentionally, and post-character introduction. Now, all of that said, thank you. And we will be streaming again tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's already a Twitch event set up for it, Redhurst Academy of Magic. And there's now also a Twitch event set up for Fallout Equestria. So I'll see you guys there. In the meantime, good night, everyone.